So, first of all, we have the ability to have a separate conscious mind from the rest of our body. Of course, we are still completely physical. The mind is part of the body. We are completely affected by biology and the physical world. Our mind can be corroded, affected, influenced by the state of our physical body, our brain, what we eat, conditions of the body, and etc. Especially hormones, but well, anyways, the ability to separate the conscious mind from the reactive body, that is to say, our ingrained responses, our triggers, etc., is what separates us from another animal. And that is what we feel is our free will. The difference between the two does not make the conscious thought all powerful, because your conscious thought does not have full control over your functioning body. It probably takes up only a few percent of your brain, probably like 10% at a time or less, I don't know. But like the part that has feelings, controls your behavior, controls your hormones, controls all of this stuff, you don't actually control. So you have this conscious part of your brain that has thoughts about what you should do, what you are doing, etc., but it is the rest of your body that actually controls it, which is the reason why we can work on autopilot, which is the reason why sometimes we can feel that we want something, and then a second part of us goes, but we don't really want that thing, or I don't want to. So like, for example, I want to do my homework, but I don't want to do my homework. That's two different parts of you speaking. And when we think these things, or like what we want to be, how we want our schedule to look like, what we want to do, we have to take into account this part of us that actually controls the body, the part of us that wants to tell our body what to do, the part that actually controls our body. You have to take into account this part's desires and needs. It's like a child, and you have to train it. So you have to start in a way that it takes into account its opinions, its inclination to rebel if what you say is too strict or your demands are too sudden, and not incline with its previous habits. So I'm grappling with this idea of self-parenting, where you are the child and you are the parent. So you have to take into account the child's needs, desires, inclinations, habits, etc., and think about how you want to shape that behavior based with those in mind. You can't just say, go to your room, go do your homework, eat all of the greens, work out every day, go do this, go do that, go study, get all A's, etc. Read more books, don't play video games, and just assume that things are gonna go great. Because you're also the child, and when you're the child and your parent tells you that, you're probably not gonna just go, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna do all of that now. So I haven't really thought this through very well. I'm still grappling with the idea and extrapolations, but it makes sense to me. I haven't thought through all the details. Okay, so that's self-parenting. But parenting is the same as leadership, really. And so I'm also grappling with self-leadership. And like when you think about the ways you would expect what you think a good leader should be, for example, they should listen to you, like empathically, not like you tell them what to do. They should take into account your concerns and considerations, and the concern. And when I say you, I mean everybody who looks to them as a leader. Make sound, rational decisions. Sometimes takes some calculated risks in favor of the group. Um, uh, what else? I mean, all this. I'm not really that thorough. I'm not a leader. I don't know all of this, but but I'm grappling with this idea because I feel like all of us need to look at ourselves as if we are our own leader and also our own follower. Another other things that coincide with this are uh, statements such as you cannot uh, to be a leader is to help those around you, to be an effective person. Your relationship with others are an extension of your relationship with yourself. Which means you have to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others. And a lot of the time, we look to others and hope that we can get the leadership elsewhere in the places we lack, which is fine, but it's as if we are looking for someone else to fix our holes and problems. And the concept of this is that people could be accountable for your problems, but that doesn't mean they will solve it. For example, if someone is at fault and has wronged you, you might expect them to fix it. That's true. They should, but that doesn't mean they will. You have to live your life regardless of whether or not they do. So I'm looking through and thinking about how I should frame these two ideas, self-parenting and self-leadership. Okay, but aside from that, let me see, what other notes do I have? Yeah, I saw an Alex Hormozy clip about selling someone, which that's what all of his clips are. But I really liked this one in particular. I found it very memorable because it feels very true. And that's when you start with the negatives before the positives, rather than the other way around. And it's a very psychological thing. When you start with the positives and then go with the negatives, it makes you feel as if you are hiding the negatives behind the positives. But when you start with the negatives and then go to the positives, it feels like you're not afraid to show the negatives because you feel that it's as if you're putting trust in the other person, that they're willing to hear you out even if you show them the negatives. Because when you put the positive first, it's like, I want to grab your attention, I don't trust that you actually care enough to hear me out, you're just, it's like clickbait almost. And when you start with the negatives, you put trust in them that they're going to listen, kind of, and then that way they trust you back, because to gain trust you have to start by showing trust, or something like that. I don't know. It's just some of my thoughts about it. It reminds me of the other one, which is Simon Sinek's story, which is when he gets an email where they say all the good things about him, and then they say, by the way, can you help me with this? It feels like all of the pleasantries are just to butter him up for the thing they wanted. Whereas if they say, can you do me this favor? By the way, I love all your work. It feels like they're blunt and they know they're honest about the fact that the email is because of the favor. And then after that, it's like, now that I know why you're messaging me, you feel grateful for the compliments or something like that. Okay. Next, I think I have a note somewhere. Let me see. Ah, yes. From Adam Grant's Think Again. If you like, okay, this isn't actually what he said exactly, but this is something I had a thought that was triggered by him. If you like being right, like if you get into arguments because you feel like you want to be right, or you try to convince people of something, because you want to feel like you're right, then As a person, the thing you should want the most is to prove yourself wrong. So you might want to be right, but that inherently means you should want to be proven wrong. And you should accept it and be willing and be happy about it and find joy in it, because that will allow you to be more right. Now, obviously, if you like discover that you're wrong, that can create, that in itself can create a new overconfidence bias, because now you're more confident when you discovered. But like, that's beside the point. The practice of proving yourself, the scientific method, right? You should never seek to prove yourself right. You should seek to prove yourself wrong, because that's how, like, if you believe that the sun rises from, actually, I don't even know the most basic fact. It rises from the east, I think. Oh my god. Okay. Please tell me the sun rises from the east. Okay, let's. Oh my god, I feel so unbelievably. Okay, it does. Thank God I'm not brain dead. Okay, I feel so. Okay, if you believe that the sun rises from the east every day, you don't go, it rose from the east today. That's 1. It rose from the east tomorrow. That's 2. It rose from the east the day after. That's 3. And then if the sun rose from the west one day, you go, oh yeah, but it's like 1,000 to 1. So my theory is still sound. No, you go, okay, well, it doesn't rise from the east every day. Something's up with my theory. So that's how that works. So you don't go, this, I prove, I made this person feel like they're wrong. I made this person feel like they're wrong. I made this person feel like they're wrong. Therefore, I must be right. It's not how that works. So yeah, you should genuinely enjoy being wrong if you want to be right. I actually, like, every time I go, oh, I was, like, I feel that way. Like, I want to be right, but that's why when I'm proven wrong, or I find out a new fact that goes, oh, I was wrong about this, it feels so fascinating. I'm like, this fact, I love this fact. And it really makes it stick. So it's like, you want to feel confident in yourself. That's why you should be more critical about yourself. Okay. A story I liked from that he mentioned actually was not from his book. It was about some Saturday night skit. I don't remember exactly, but basically it was a story about tourists who said they didn't like the tour, or they weren't enjoying themselves. And the tourist said, if you were sad, we can take you places, but we can't make you have fun. If you were a sad person somewhere else and you get on a plane, you're still the same person. You're just sad in a different place. We can take you on hikes, but we can't make you enjoy hiking. And I really like that quote. Saying this to make it more memorable. Okay. So yeah, you have to solve your problems if you have problems. You can't expect the problems to magically disappear by changing things. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't change your environment, because reducing negativity in your environment will reduce negativity within you. And same with positivity. Increasing positivity in the environment increases positivity in you, which is why you should control the content that you watch. If you're watching content that is clickbait and makes you angry, or makes you feel smug and doesn't really make you remember it, you should probably not watch it. And I feel like shorts is the worst part of this, which is why I had to remove my shorts section, because it was like, I kept clicking on these clickbait videos because they were so effective at clickbaiting, and I just wasted so much time. I had to remove the shorts channel off of my front page. Okay, next. Damn, I got distracted, but I took myself off track. Now I forgot what I wanted to say. What was I talking about just a minute ago, before the distractions? Um, Something else from Think Again. Uh, yes. He also talked about what caused people to change their mind. It wasn't facts, it wasn't a sound argument from the opponent. It was making it was it was questions that made the other person think more about their own opinion and how they formed that opinion. Or usually asking, going, I agree with your premise. Does the conclusion truly follow from the premise? Like, if we take this premise, does that imply the conclusion? Or maybe, if we take this premise, what do you think about this other factor you may not have considered? And maybe that would affect the conclusion that follows. Yeah, so people, you don't get convinced by other people. Other people, outside events might cause you to convince yourself. Another thing, when you hear things that are profound, and you listen to it and go, oh, that makes so much sense, and then you think you're just going to remember that from now on, a lot of the time you don't, because when you listen to it, it sounds so obvious that your brain goes, oh yeah, I mean, I already know that, or I already understand that, so it doesn't really ingrain itself a lot of the time. So that's why a lot of the time you can listen to a bunch of stuff that sounds profound and meaningful, and then you think it's going to impact your life, or you think it's going to be remembered, you think it's going to be deep in your brain, but it's not. So it's probably best to write it down in a few words as a topic. Think about it. Think about what you think about those words, which is basically what I'm doing. That's the entire journal. And then really think about what implications it might have, and then it'll be ingrained in your brain. Now, obviously, this should be if you think it's worth expounding on. A lot of the time, your opinion may not be the same conclusion that they drove or whatever, but it's good to know that when you hear something that you think sounds great, it's probably best to write down a few words and actually genuinely try to think about it a bit more if you want to remember it. Mistake I made is I remembered it earlier, but I forgot now. But mistake I made in the past couple of days is I kept getting impulsive and not communicating what I really wanted to communicate in a lot of conversations, or letting things go in the wrong direction. And also I find it very hard to focus on things I want to get done. So I need and the problem is, like, I understand that it's mostly because of my habit, and I need to allow it to train that ability. But like it really is kind of disheartening when I only get to be effective for maybe 2 to 3 hours in the day. I think they said, like, obviously though, you can't actually expect to be productive for 8 hours, because people, like, if you think about full-time jobs, you're not actively being like creative or productive and doing new things for those 8 hours. You're either on autopilot or just distracted or whatever for most of them. And I think they said that they studied that during a full-time job you got maybe 3 to 4 hours of productivity on average. And they tried experiments where you worked 4 days a week instead with for like and they so or 6 hours a day for 5 days, and they got the same or oftentimes more productivity. Now obviously this is not for like customer service or anything, but like if they were trying to do work that was dependent on the individual and what they could do on their own, like the stereotypical office job, I guess, or coding work or anything like that. So that was an interesting experiment. So I guess the takeaway I want to use from that is, don't feel bad if you don't feel that productive, like if you're working remote, because oftentimes you're really getting the same amount of work that you might get done in like an 8-hour office job, if you're doing like 3 to 5 hours a day on average, especially since you can also do it 7 days a week, of like 3 to 4 to 5 hours a day, maybe, as of effective ones, of like when you're actively actually doing something, not doesn't include the times you're distracted, eating, drinking coffee, chatting with other people, like actual work. And then later on you go, oh, I could have been more productive, I could have been more focused. Realistically, you probably couldn't have done it for that many hours. All right, see you guys.